It's time for Reason.
If you can put it on the ballot, and if you can get 51% of naive, ignorant individuals to not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment, to not understand the purpose of shooting a gun, to not understand the role of what having a gun or a militia is all about, to understand the background check process. You don't understand because you've never done it. To have that much of a voice. It is the blind leading the blind.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-American Network. Welcome into it today, the day you've been looking forward to. I know you're excited about it. I'm excited about it. Let's make it a Friday. Not only a Friday, but a free-for-all Friday. Anything on your mind, bothering you, troubling you, it does not matter. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? It is a free-for-all Friday right here.
Hey, let's do it. Yeah, it's free-for-all.
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. We'd love to hear from you. No guests today, just you and I chit in the chat throughout the entire show. I do want to play at the bottom of the hour. We will have a little bit of fun. The Genevieve Wood, she is the Senior Communications Advisor for the Heritage Foundation, along with the Daily Signal. We'll chat. We chatted with her yesterday. We'll play that interview at the bottom of this hour. But other than that, it is open lines to you. And I have to say that I am very excited about today, not only for the fact that it is Friday, but it's going to be a good day. Other than the fact it's going to be a little cold. Yesterday was beautiful, 70-degree weather. Today's supposed to be chilly again for whatever reason, snow in parts of Kansas. I don't know why we cannot get out of this. Talk about global warming. Thanks, Al Gore. You've overcorrected ourselves. You fixed ourselves too much, and now we're having cold and winter and snow in April this year, and I don't like that. I like the 70-degree weather. Let's keep it there and just not change again, shall we? Please, pretty please. The man himself, Conor McGregor, back in the news today. If you follow any of the UFC or MMA stuff or the sports side at all, kind of shakes up the whole monotony of the golf and of the Masters, which I don't really care about in any way, shape, or form. It is kind of fun to watch it just for the fact that, like, I don't know if you do watch the Masters. There was the guy on the very first day where he hit the hole-in-one, got all excited and ran down the course and then like rolled his ankle and his ankle popped out, and it was just kind of interesting to watch. That was about the most excitement that I've been able to watch the entire Masters. Conor McGregor bashed up a bus yesterday of Khabib, and I think that was kind of interesting. So we may talk about that a little bit later, which I thought was kind of interesting because I wanted to segue into the intro of our topic in this sense of the fact that when you're a boxer, or if you're a fighter, if you're an MMA fighter, a UFC fighter, you talk tough. You're in the press conferences, you're doing the interviews, and you kind of have to talk tough, right? You talk smack, you talk the trash a little bit, you do the spout back and forth a little bit. You're talking trash to one another. And that's fine and dandy, and it's entertaining, and it brings in the ratings, and there's a big beef between these guys. It was a little fake during the whole Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather thing after a while because they tried to stage it and drag it on too long. But usually, there's some really good beef because they hype themselves up to get into a ring and be able to fight each other. But at the end of the day, you have to back it up. At the end of the day, you have to support your claims of saying that you're going to be able to dominate your opponent. At the end of the day, you're going to have to support that based on your actions, not just on your words. And right now, when it comes to the political front, we're not backing up our words as Republicans or as conservatives saying that we will build the wall, that we will get rid of illegal immigration, and we will stop that from happening in our nation. We're not backing that up right now. If you remember, when Donald Trump got elected last year, or in 2016 in November, he got sworn in January of 2017, that the immigration and the number of people coming across the border illegally, it dropped off. It was like an 80% decrease. You remember that? 75, 80% decrease. I mean, no one was coming across the border. They were terrified of President Donald Trump. They were terrified of what he was going to do. They were scared of what the Republicans were going to do because they've been talking trash They've been hyping themselves up, and they've been doing the trash talk for a really long time, saying that they needed the power in both legislatures, in both chambers, in the House and the Senate. They needed the presidency, and they needed the ability to have the majority in all of the government so that way they could build the wall, they could stop the immigration, they could stop the chain migration, they could stop the DACA recipients, they could stop all this. And that was the big trash talk. You remember that. What have we done so far? Well, we just put the National Guard down there, which is good news, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But what have we done so far? In the last year of having a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican presidency, have we built the wall? Have we beefed up security down there? Now we've done a few things by changing some of the policies to where we're not doing necessarily the catch and release any longer. We've gotten rid of some of the sanctuary cities. We put pressure on some of the sanctuary cities by financial ties. We've done a few things, but have we secured the border to the point that we need to? No. And because of that, the trash-talking MMA fighter, the trash-talking boxer that said that they were going to come in and dominate the entire event and they were going to come in and knock them out in the third round and that they were going to take over the entire industry, it has not happened. The Republicans have not come in, have not dominated the discussion, have not dominated the legislation, have not rammed through the legislation with the Democrats opposing to it. They have not built the wall yet. And you know what? That trash talk was called out. That bluff was called. And now we see, according to CNS News, that 50,308 individuals were stopped on the Mexican border last month. Alone, 50,000 people in a month. Can you believe that? Which is up from March of 2017 by 203%. Because the year prior to that, everybody was panicky about the fact that Donald Trump was going to be in office. They were scared to death about what the Republicans were going to do by shutting down the border and not allowing anybody to come across it. And we didn't do anything. We haven't fixed it. We haven't adjusted it. We've slowly tried to work on it. We've given it the long term. We've debated about the budget. We've debated about DACA. We've shut down the government for 3 days, 2 of them over the weekend. We've done very, very little on actual substance or progress when it comes to securing the wall and securing the border, and now we're paying the benefits of that. 203% rise from March of 2017 to March of 2018. 50,000 people were either apprehended or deemed inadmissible at the southern border last month. U.S. Customs and Borders has reported there's a 37% increase from 36,695 counted in February, but a whopping 203% increase from March of 2017, where there were only 16,000 individuals. And I remember talking about that. We remember that here on the show. We'd mentioned that by March, after Donald Trump was elected, that the southern border was dead, that people were not coming across, and that we have won the battle because we, my friends, were able to elect Donald Trump and we got him in, and the Republicans now can secure the border, and people are terrified and scared. We talked about that. Now, they called our bluff. The traffickers and smugglers know that family units increased by 49%, by the way, from February to March as well, and the number of unaccompanied children increased 41% compared to February as well. The traffickers and smugglers know that if you arrive with a family under our current legal and court system, you have a much better chance of being released into the United States. We have seen the smugglers advertise this more than once, and we have seen traffickers, unfortunately, fraudulently use children to gain entry into the country. Why? Because we're all emotional about the children, of course. Progressives only care about one thing, which is about the innocent little children, and if we have a child with the family, then we need to bring the entire family in. If it's the child all by him or herself, then we need to bring them in, and if there's a one parent with them, then we probably need to bring the family in too. Them along with whoever else may be with them with the chain migration. Why? Because we cannot tear the family apart because the children are innocent. So the drug smugglers, the human traffickers, everybody knows this. They get caught crossing the border and they have a child with them. Oh, yes, they're my family. We don't want to go away. We can't break up the family. You need to bring us in. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Welcome aboard. Come into the country. 46% increase of children, 49% family units coming in. Is this a shocker? No, because they know that we use the emotional system. This is what happens when we put emotion before facts. This is what happens when we put emotion before common sense, because when we're all emotional about something, then we're not going to be as substantial, we're not going to be as productive, and we're not going to be as efficient as what we could be as if we would take emotion out of the equation. Now, we've made some ground, and I want to give you some positive news. We've made some ground when it comes to, number one, getting rid of the exemptions for pregnant women. Saying that just because you're pregnant, we're not going to detain you, we're not going to put you in prison for as long, and you're going to be released, and then we'll come and find you later. And, oh, by the way, if you have your child, then you'll probably get birthright citizenship to be able to stay here. We're going to start getting rid of that and repealing that because we need to. We have gotten rid of the policy of the catch and release program. We're starting to. We're doing better on that front. I understand the government takes time here. We've been trying to put pressure on the sanctuary cities. Now they're putting up their guard, and of course the lawsuits are going to ensue, but you know what? We're starting. We're doing very nicely there. And then, of course, now we're calling for the National Guard in order to come in and be able to secure the border until we get the wall built. You know what? Everything that we can do is beneficial. Everything that we can do is positive, and if this is what it takes, then that's what it takes, and that's what we have to support. 316-721-8255. Your thoughts on this? The fact that we're seeing a 203% increase of illegal immigrants crossing the border as of March of last year, from a month-to-month comparison last year to this year, or even a 46% increase from February to March. It's warmer season. It's warmer weather. People are going to start doing this more frequently throughout the summer. We need to be aware of that, and we need to put a stop to it right now. The Republicans, you talked a lot of trash when you were in the minority. Now it's time to step up your game and improve it.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting across the entire Mid-America Network. We love having you aboard here on a Friday, the Free for All Friday, meaning anything that you want to talk about, you're more than welcome to do so. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Starting off your day the best way that we know how to do so. I do want to clarify, by the way, the Republicans that are talking trash, there are many conservatives that are fighting for this. Donald Trump has been advocating for the wall. He was okay with wanting to shut down the government before when we came to the immigration debate, when it came to the whole DACA issue. Ted Cruz had advocated to use all the money used by all the drug lords that we've been able to capture to apply that towards the wall. Conservatives are the ones that are actually trying to make this happen. The ones that we need to be focused on, really, are the establishment Republicans. I mean, give me a break. We just passed a couple of weeks ago one of the largest omnibus bills in the country's history, $1.3 trillion, which is absolutely absurd and unbelievable for a six-month budget. And the fact that we could throw in special interests from the Democrats, special interests from the Republicans, all these different special interests, all these nice little pet projects, we could throw all of this in, but yet we couldn't fund the wall that's $50 billion, really. And with our budget right now that we have at the federal government, a $50 billion plan is really chump change. Is really kind of chump change. Let's build the wall. Let's make it happen right now. And then, let's still put the National Guard on there. Why the heck not? So I'm not attacking all the Republicans here. It's the conservatives and Donald Trump that are actually fighting for this. It's the Democrats that have a little bit of a voice, and the establishment Republicans that are too weaselly, without a backbone, to actually stand up and fight for these things, to actually make them happen. And that's what we need to call out. Now, it even comes down to when we talk about the National Guard. According to the Daily Mail, Oregon governor tells Trump that they'll refuse to send National Guard troops to the Mexican border if he calls upon them, and they'll refuse to do so. You know what? Fine. We'll get somebody else. We're going to talk to the people that are actually going to help. I guarantee you that if Donald Trump called up Governor Jeff Collier here in the state of Kansas and said, Governor Collier, I need part of your National Guard to go down to the border and to actually do something productive and actually try and secure the border, then we would say, hey, done, baby. It's done. Let's go make it happen. And that's what most states would do. And then, of course, there's going to be those few states that won't. Oregon. I guarantee you California wouldn't. I guarantee you probably New York wouldn't. There's going to be some of those states that say, we ain't going to do that. Probably even Arizona, because Arizona doesn't even really care for the conservative values. I mean, come on, we have John McCain there. Give me a break. Arizona's not going to stand up and fight that, and they're even on the border. They're the ones saying, "Hey, they're going to be the they're going to be the Underground Railroad like we had for the slaves moving up north during the Civil War. They're going to be the Underground Railroad trying to get illegal immigrants to come through the border and to go through Arizona on their way to California. That's going to be Arizona." We have the establishment rhino progressive Republican Jeff Flake there, and then we have the establishment rhino progressive John McCain there. The two ridiculous senators who have no business being in Washington, D.C. Arizona is a very odd place, and I just haven't quite understood them as of yet. The president signed the proclamation on Wednesday that ordered the Defense Secretary James Mattis to request the use of National Guard personnel to assist with the Homeland Security Department's existing border patrons operations. But governors' duties include commanding their state's guards units can say no. Now, there's two different ways that the president can do this. And thankfully, President Trump did do it the right way. He did not go about this the wrong way, although, of course, everybody's going to throw a fit and say that he's doing it the wrong way and that he's a fascist and Nazi and that he's trying to abuse the power of his presidency, which is all absurd. But there's two ways that he could have actually done this. The president can call upon the National Guard units in two ways. Both of them enacted, by the way, in Congress in 1956. One of them, known as Title 10, would allow Trump to federalize the Guard, ordering it to assemble to active duty. This is typically done during wartime. They can rise it up and say, now, National Guard, you're now part of the U.S. military, and you're under my control as the commander-in-chief, and this is what we're going to do. The other way, which is the way he did it, was a Title 32 law, which puts the burden on governors to order the National Guard for operational homeland defense activities with the request of the President of the United States, and that's what he has done. So any state can say no, but this is really going to, I think, reflect on what's going to happen with the elections coming up for the midterms in November. If there is a state with a governor or with a government, a state government, that chooses not to support President Trump in sending National Guards members if he requests them, then that's really going to be the divisive number. And the voters in those states are going to sit back and say, wait a second, maybe I'm part of the National Guard. Maybe I know people in the National Guard. Maybe I support the National Guard, and I want them to go and secure the border because we need to secure the border. So therefore, if you're not going to do it, we're going to elect somebody else in there that will support him and get this done, because we may not be a border state, but we need to support the president, and we need to fix this illegal immigrant issue. We still have individuals in the nation that are supporting sanctuary cities. We still have individuals in elected official positions that are supporting sanctuary states. You just saw the story, and we'll talk about it later in the show. Over 1 million people have driver's license in the state of California who are illegal immigrants. How does that happen? You don't have documentation. Maybe you have a stolen Social Security number. You have not followed the process of the rule of law to show that you are actually a legitimate citizen that can actually get a certificate, that can actually get a driver's license and have the documentation to back that up. You don't have that, but yet somehow you have a nice little card saying that you're allowed to drive, and you're driving around our streets. This is unbelievable, and this kind of activity needs to stop now. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Lots more. Stay here on The Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Boy, wouldn't it be fun to get someone to want in to call in, argue with me, debate me today? I think it'd be kind of fun for a Friday. Let's make it a little entertaining. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We'll talk more about the immigration issue a little bit later. We will talk about an update on the educational funding issue happening in the state of Kansas in just a minute as well. But I do want to shift gears. Yesterday, we sat down with the senior communications advisor for the Daily Signal, along with the Heritage Foundation, Genevieve Wood, talking about the Trump administration, the conservative agenda that we've been able to advocate for at the federal level, and opportunities for us to focus on what we can do to change some of the issues and debates happening at the federal level. This was Genevieve Wood yesterday right here on The Voice of Reason from the Heritage Foundation. She is the senior communications advisor for the Daily Signal, along with the Heritage Foundation. She is Genevieve Wood on the show with us. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. First off, I know most of the listeners and most of the conservatives around the area, are very familiar with the Heritage Foundation. I've been a very big fan for a very long time, especially working with the organization in college during the college Republican years that I had back when. But talk about the Heritage Foundation and what you guys have been doing and what's the latest in Washington, D.C.
Well, as we were saying right before the show, Andy, it's always a busy time. Congress is not here right now, so they're still in their Easter or spring recess. So the country's safe for another week or so before they can do more laws and damage. But it's been a very busy. It's been very busy since the Trump administration got to town. We've been around since 1973, but I will say that those who have followed government, whether it's Congress and the presidencies and different administrations, say this is one of the most activist, in a good way, administrations that they have seen in a very, very long time in terms of trying very hard every day to do good things. And within the law, unlike President Obama, who when he couldn't get Congress to do what he would want them to do, he would just write his own regulations and get agencies to put in rules and the like that he wanted on his own. They're doing everything they can within their executive power to get things back on track and to fulfill, I think, many of the promises that he made on the campaign trail. We've been measuring those successes and where we're still falling short. But I will tell you, we did a survey of the first year and a half of his administration, and he's done 64% of the recommendations that we as an institution made, covering everything from environmental regulation policy to budget to health care to national defense, kind of covering the gamut. There's a lot of work to be done, don't get me wrong, but they've been fulfilling a lot of the promises that they made.
You know what, and we need to hear that type of news because we don't hear that in the mainstream media. We don't hear about how successful we are being, even from the Republican side. When Mitch McConnell came out last year and said, well, it was a really successful year. We got a Supreme Court justice in and we got the tax cut in with a partial repeal of Obamacare in that bill. And those two items last year, that was a really successful year. And to conservatives on the front, especially like out here in Kansas, we're sitting back saying, wait a second, we have a long ways to go. That's it. What are we doing up there? We talked with Corey Lewandowski when they came out with their book, Let Trump Be Trump, on the show, and he had mentioned how frustrated that even with what he has been able to do, how frustrated President Trump has been because of how many times he's had his hands tied and he couldn't actually get the agendas done that we needed to. So it is encouraging to hear that we're actually seeing some kind of progress in D.C.
Well, there is. A lot of it, I would say, is not necessarily behind the scenes, but a lot of it is rolling back regulations that the previous administration and others, frankly, have put into place. I would say probably the Environmental Protection Agency and a lot of things you see in the energy arena are the specific areas where you've seen a lot of rollback on regulations, which, in addition to passing the tax cuts, is one of the reasons you see the economy and jobs coming back into play. But listen, there's no doubt Congress is still the stumbling block. There's only so much the executive, we have three branches of government. The president is not king. He can't just go around and make rules and make laws, even though President Obama tried to do that at times. There's things he needs Congress to do. And I will say one of the failures very recently was the huge budget that was just passed, the big omnibus bill that was passed. That was a disaster by many respects. And the reason it occurred is because Republicans got everything they wanted, Democrats got everything they wanted, and that's when you end up with these trillion-dollar omnibus bills. There's some talk right now, I think a good reason being they had a lot of pushback from the conservative grassroots who were extremely unhappy with that bill. And so now they're looking at, could we possibly go back and rescind some of that spending? That does not take a supermajority. That can just be a 50+1 in the Senate. So there's no reason that if Republicans, they've got those votes right now, that they can't do that. So when they get back from Easter, I would encourage your listeners, if they are upset about the omnibus bill that recently passed, they let their members know, we want you to go back and look at that and take out the stuff we don't need in it.
Boy, absolutely. I didn't know that they could even try and do that. So that's really encouraging news on that front, because you're right. We got a lot of pushback. Our legislators here are, both of our senators, our 4 congressmen here in Kansas ended up voting for it, and there were a lot of people that were unhappy. Now, I always try to put the positive light on that, and I like the fact that I really think we need to be focused on the appropriations process when we come back, because we have a huge opportunity here to be able to actually look at, reform the budget, go through the 12 different types of appropriations, and really have a solid bill for the next couple of years. Is that something that we should really start focusing on as well?
Well, definitely. I mean, that would be called regular order, where you go, which is can be a good thing. You're right. They should be going through the appropriation process.
Sure.
They haven't been doing that, and that's why it all gets rolled up into these one big kind of, throw everything in the kitchen sink kind of bills.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to hide excessive spending in those things. And it also, Congress always acts when they're on a deadline. They act like they don't like it, but I think actually they really do, because then they can say things like they just did with this last spending measure. Well, we've got to fund the military. We've got to give them what they need.
Right.
And that's very true. And it's one reason many Republicans, many conservatives, took the hard gulp and said, okay, we'll be for this, because they knew our military needed that funding. But we shouldn't be in that kind of do or die situation. And frankly, again, Republicans who are in Congress, they have to be doing a better job.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we definitely do. What's been your take on, and with the Heritage Foundation's view on everybody talks about the mass panic that happens with the turnaround in the administration, the different nominees that Trump picks, and then letting somebody go and hiring somebody new. To me, it's just the business owner that's not seeing the productivity that he wants to see, so he gets the right person in there. I have zero problem with it, but apparently there are some people that feel like all these different picks and the transitions. I mean, we're very proud of Mike Pompeo being from right here.
Yeah.
In the Wichita area, going from the congressional seat to the CIA, now being Secretary of State. I mean, we're very proud of that, but a lot of people are very up and have their guard up about all these transitions and turnarounds that we're seeing.
Well, I mean, Washington's not used to accountability. It's not often used to really making sure, are we doing what we said we were going to do, and if not, are we making changes to get in the right track to get there? And I think that's exactly what business does, right? You've got a bottom line, you've got shareholders, you're looking at the books every month to see what are we doing, what do we need to change, and I think that's what he's doing. And sometimes that means you change personnel. And look, again, I think the president currently is beginning to get around him even more of the people that he probably, had he known Washington even better, might have been picking in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I think you're seeing more and more of his team coming in and the solidifying of his team as and some of the folks who were, part of the establishment to a certain extent or pushed by that are no longer there. But I don't think there's any reason to be concerned that, we've got new cabinet secretaries or he's taking somebody out of this job and putting a new person in. If you're trying to get better results, sometimes that's what you have to do.
You said 64% of the agenda or the guidelines that the Heritage Foundation has been able to put out, the Trump administration has either been able to do or work on, at least to start getting better. By this time, during the Reagan's first year, only 49% was actually being done.
Kind of surprising.
We're actually seeing a little bit more progress there. Do you think that's going to help with this election come for the midterms the end of this year, or are you guys concerned about maybe a blue wave that's trying to take hold in the nation right now?
Well, I think everybody, if you look at history, you realize that the party in power usually loses seats in this term. So I think people are concerned, because I will tell you, as hard as it is right now, even with the Congress that the president has, it will be far harder if Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House, if Democrats were to take control. So, that would be... When you look at things, for example, like rescinding budget measures, going forward again on health care, there's a lot of things that will completely be stalled out. The final 2 years of his administration would be nothing but preparing for 2020 on the Democratic side. Their goal would be nothing at all to happen in Congress, because they wouldn't want to give him any wins whatsoever. Sure. So I think, look, if people, I'm sure they could be disappointed saying, well, we're not getting everything that we want. A part of that is, Congress isn't as good as it should be, but another part of that is it takes time. Sure. And I would encourage people to, make sure that they turn out in November. Don't let the left take the streams again.
No, that's very true. A couple questions left for you. I know that you're short on time. Genevieve Wood with the Heritage Foundation and with the Daily Signal. Your thoughts on the regulatory matters that we have. What's the next step that Trump can do, or the big focus that we should have to really rally a lot of the base that may be upset about the last omnibus bill, that may be upset with the way Trump's handled certain things or the tweets or whatever is on their mind, maybe some of the never-Trumpers that I don't know if we can ever get on board. But what could we...
Some people are unconvincible.
Some people are unconvincible. No matter what you do, it's never good enough, which I understand to a degree, but yet I don't understand it. But what could Trump do, or what could be the next focus to really rally them? Would it be funding the wall and seeing the wall being built? Could it be the official final repeal of Obamacare? What should we really focus on in the next few months?
Well, I think you just named a couple of them. And look, I mean, the president is sending the National Guard to the border now. I think this recent scenario that we've seen when it comes to immigration policy is a very good example of people saying the president is trying to do what he promised the American people he would do. He can't go build the wall by himself. He can't appropriate the money to do it. Congress has to do that. But where he can do something, such as send the Guard in and say, we will protect our border, he's doing it. And I do think people see that. I also think people see that Mexico realized, you know what, America has said that they're not going to let people in. They're sending troops to the border. Maybe we need to do our part here. And they're actually have disbanded the caravan and are turning those folks around. So that's not something we've seen Mexico do in the past. They've acted like, well, these folks are just walking across our land and headed to the U.S., and we're doing nothing to stop it. This time, Mexican officials decided we need to do something to actually stop it. So I think that's where they're seeing the U.S. is serious. They have a president who's serious. So that's the kind of thing on immigration I think we'll see continue to play out over the course of the summer. And then when it comes to Obamacare, one of the silver linings out of the omnibus bill that was passed was that they did not fund Obamacare. They did not say we're going to put money in to pay off insurance companies to keep this thing afloat. That is a very good thing because it can't stay afloat unless we keep putting more money into it, which means Congress is going to be forced to deal with that issue. And that's a good thing because it gives us a chance to go back not only on the repeal, but the actual replace.
There it was. That was Genevieve Wood with the Heritage Foundation. We chatted with her yesterday on the program. We appreciate her very much joining. We'll get her back on the show a little bit later. A lot of things happening right now in the world. A lot of things to discuss and talk about. We'll get your phone calls when we come back as well. It is a Friday, a free-for-all Friday, meaning whatever you want to talk about, it's open line to you. Stay here.
With Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1 on a Friday, a free-for-all Friday. Great to have you along today. 316-721-8255. I do want to remind you, today is not just a free-for-all Friday. This portion of the Voice of Reason, as always, on a Friday, brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe. It is also a fried chicken Friday. 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman, just north of Hutchinson. They got their nice buffet from 11 to 1 for lunch. Their big buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight with free for all fried chicken Friday. Making it happen. Katie's on the line with us. Katie, what's happening today?
Good morning, Andy. Happy Fried Chicken Friday.
Happy
Fried
Chicken
it
Friday.
really is. It's a free-for-all fried chicken.
It is.
I mean, it's like melee in here.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, it's complete, absolute awesome chaos where everybody's scrambling to get that fried chicken, get their piece of pie, to get everything else that's on the smorgasbord, because that is just the awesomeness of the way Fridays actually happen.
That's right. And actually, right now, we're putting on a breakfast buffet, so it's like an egg, bacon, pancake, biscuit, and gravy free-for-all.
Oh, see, I don't even remember the last time I had biscuits and gravy. That sounds really good right now.
Yeah, well, you should come. Well, you can't. You're on the radio.
Well, on the radio. One of these days, though, I'm going to make it up there for the breakfast and enjoy some of the biscuits and gravy. Well, tell us, we got the buffets, as you mentioned, the breakfast going on right now, the lunch from 11 to 1, the big buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight. What's on the slate for today? What do you guys got going?
So today, besides the fried chicken, we're going to have Huntington's chicken. I don't know if you know what that is. That's like it's kind of like a macaroni and cheese with chicken in it. Yeah, and then it's got like a really cheesy, chickeny flavored saucy stuff, and then a biscuit, not biscuit, but a crumbly type, like breadcrumb. That's what I'm trying to come up with. Breadcrumb type topping on top. So we're having that, and then we're also going to have a taco casserole, which is the taco meat, the refried beans, the nacho cheese kind of thing mixed all together, and then on top of that is a biscuit topping, like a biscuit layer. It's kind of like a taco pot pie is what it is. And then we top that with shredded lettuce and onions and tomatoes and the little shredded cheese. And that's really yummy.
I love it.
And then Of course, from 5 to 8 this evening, our buffet will have the famous roast beef on there, which is currently slow roasting in the oven, but you can't smell it. I'm sorry. You can't smell it right now because of all of the breakfasty foods that are, right now I smell bacon, so.
Well, you know what?
Actually, I'm burning the bacon, Andy. I'm burning it.
Burning the bacon. Well, I tell you what, the bacon is the best smell to have in the morning anyway, so that's okay.
It is, as long as you don't burn it. So, okay.
That's all right. Well, you have all of those great, wonderful things, but also tonight, we got to remind everyone, because this really entices people to say, I need to go get a piece of this and check it out. But the free slice of pie tonight from 5 to 8 o'clock during that buffet, what types of pies do you have on the slate today?
So last week when we talked, our pie case was broken, and it was devastating, and we only had fruit pies, and people were very sad, except they loved the fruit pies. But now we got it fixed. So
Very
hallelujah.
Nice. Very
we got
nice.
Coconut, peanut butter, sour cream raisin, pumpkin pecan, that's one pie, caramel apple, custard, and peach. And then we'll have a banana split and probably something else absolutely fabulous this afternoon.
Oh, I'm sure you'll have a couple of those surprises, but that right there just is totally worth it. Now, how did what do you call it, the bumbleberry? How did that go last week? That everybody enjoyed that
one?
one?
Always goes. Oh yeah, that always goes. That's one of the first ones to go because that's
That's the best one.
Yeah, and you never find it anywhere else that I've ever seen. Of course, I don't go a lot of places, but I think it's an original here that I've ever found, so
yeah.
It always goes first.
One of these days I will be trying that, and I will be getting an entire pie because that sounds like the best thing in the entire world. I love it. It's the free slice of pie while you get your buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight, the lunch buffet from 11 to 1, breakfast going on right now. I know your tummies are rumbling as we talk about it. It's this early in the morning because it sounds so amazing. Inman Harvest Cafe's Fried Chicken Friday. Check them out, 112 South Main Street, downtown Inman, just north of Hutch. You can call them 620-585-6925 or visit them online, inmanharvestcafe.com. Katie, you guys enjoy. We'll check in with you here in a couple hours again.
All right, thanks. We'll talk to you later.
Always a good time. Brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe. We very much appreciate them partnering up with us here on the Voice of Reason and the KQAM airwaves. We love having them on board. Got to take a break. Top of the hour news. We got some calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. I promise you, we'll kick off hour number 2 with your phone calls. We have no other guests the rest of the show today. It is a free-for-all, truly a free-for-all Friday for you today. It's open lines to you. Anything you want to talk about, anything maybe we've touched on, haven't touched on this week. A lot of big news happening, both in the state of Kansas and the entire U.S. So we'll touch on all of that. We'll have a little fun today as well because, come on, it is a Friday. It's been a heck of a week trying to get back into the groove after the holiday. Let's continue on the trend, advancing conservatism on a daily basis. Why? Because it's all about you. This is your show. It's time for you to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you can put it on the ballot, and if you can get 51% of naive, ignorant individuals to not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment, to not understand the purpose of shooting a gun, to not understand the role of what having a gun or a militia is all about, to understand the background check process. You don't understand because you've never done it. To have that much of a voice. It is the blind leading the blind.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what we're talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning and welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today as we kick off a brand new day. We are wrapping up the week. It is a Friday. What the heck? Let's make it a free-for-all Friday. As usual, it's whatever's on your mind, bothering you, troubling you. It does not matter. I am your political therapist. Let's work through it together. What do you say? Let's have a little fun today on The Voice of Reason. Let's do it. All right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. We have the Facebook Live feed that is up and running today. You can leave a comment, ask a question, say good morning, call me a jerk. I don't really care, whatever you want to do. You're more than welcome to. I'm on Twitter at Who's Your Reason as well. You can also email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com. And what the heck, let's go ahead and start off hour number 2 with a. We have no other guests today. We'll check in with the Inman Harvest Cafe again in hour number 3, but no guests today. Just you and I chit in the chat, advancing conservatism, which means the lines are all open to you today. And let's go to the phones line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
G'day, mate. It's Rick. How are you?
I'm great, Rick. How are you, my friend?
Good, mate. Good. Yeah, obviously, this is not a local call, mate. I'm calling from here in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, wait, so I got to
G'day to all the Americans out there.
Oh, well, I appreciate that very much. The fact that you're listening, that you were able to catch the show. I love that. So you're in Australia. You're in Sydney right now, you said?
Yeah, mate, I am, absolutely. And as of from tonight, I've missed the majority of your show yesterday, and as of tonight, every 9 p.m. at my time. It's 10 p.m. now, obviously, and yeah, I'm up and listening, and I've spread the word around.
I love that. I really appreciate that. That's fantastic. A broadcast. I mean, we're the local station here in Wichita, Kansas, but heck, we're making it international now, baby. I absolutely love it, and I appreciate that very much.
Not a problem, mate. I posted your comment before, and I'll stand by that. This is an old saying that says, I don't want you to think like me. I just want you to think.
Sure.
And that's exactly what you do. You provoke thought in people. American, that's awesome.
Oh, I
now,
appreciate that.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
No, it's okay, mate. No problem. First and foremost, look, I'm sorry. I've got to say it again. I love the ads. The ads are amazing. Some of them are really funny. But I do have to ask a question. It's obviously a local thing. What the heck is a frozen mix?
A frozen mix, like a drink?
No, I actually might have to check my screen.
Or are you talking about maybe like the weather?
Yeah, the weather.
Okay. Oh, okay. The frozen. Well, yeah. I mean, a frozen mix.
Frozen mix.
Yeah, it's kind of a blend of some ice and sleet and a little bit of snow with the rain. It's not quite cold enough to completely snow, but it's not warm enough for everything to freeze. So it's kind of like a rain-snow kind of mix thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, on the opposite side of the planet, it's around about 53 degrees Celsius. For you, that's 127.4.
That's a little warm. I mean, we had a beautiful day yesterday at about 75 degrees here, but now, yeah, today it's supposed to be nice and cold and sleety and snowy, and it's just going to be not as warm as what we would like it to see.
Okay. Well, we'll see. That's the way the weather goes. Mate, just a couple of questions. First of all, with regards to the border situation you guys have got, it seems interesting to me. Is this caravan thing happen every time, the same time of the year, or because you've got a situation at the moment where I understand, and I'm learning as I go, I understand that Congress over there is not available because they're on an Easter break.
Sure.
Now, to me, it looks like it's actually coinciding with the fact that they're on a break, because think about it, Congress has to write the laws. That's what they do. And if they're conveniently not available, then, gee, it would be an interesting time just to ramp it up on Trump and dump this on him. You've also got a problem with regards to Brown. I forget the lady's first name. She's adamant, no, I'm not going to send anyone. I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to remember that Donald Trump's just rolled in and with the old "be nice until it's time not to be nice," and he's requested help.
Sure.
He doesn't have to, but yeah, I guess it's just like testing the water and saying, well, okay, look, can we all work together as one, please? Because that's what I would actually prefer. We have that kind of system happening over here where it's more like political hit points than what's supposed to be done for the sake of the nation.
Sure.
But yeah, look, to me, the thing is, if the situation is as it is, and you've got Congress not available, and these are the people that need to write the laws to stop this, and you've got one governor saying, oh, no, I'm not sending people, bugger that, can Trump turn around and I'm not sure, create an executive order saying, listen, between now and the time that Congress resumes, when we can sort this out, you know what? Nah. See, we're just going to send the army out and go, right, nothing moves. Absolutely nothing.
He could. I mean, he could technically lock it down. I had mentioned it briefly, but there's two types of executive orders that he could sign at this time. He has signed a Title 32 law, which just requests the governors that if he reaches out and extends that offer and says, hey, governors, can you help us out a little bit? Can you send the National Guard? They're still under your control, but we need some help, and that's what he's done so far. In some of these states, you're right. I mean, like Governor Brown in Oregon has said no if he asks me, which he has not asked the state of Oregon to do so as of yet, but if he asks, I will not send any troops. We could expect the same type of response from California, because California has been very open to the idea of illegal immigration, and they have tried to block President Trump on everything that they've done. So they would probably do so as well, probably the state of New York as well. And maybe a few other progressive states. Washington would be probably another one. He could, if he wanted to, go to a Title 10 executive order, which pretty much says that now the National Guard is part of the U.S. military, and in me as the Commander-in-Chief of the United States, they are now under my control, and I will do as what I will. Now, that's only used usually under wartime when he needs the National Guard to be able to come up. So that's really a little excessive force to be able to be used, and I would not support something like that as well, because you're right. This is the time to where we as a nation should be united somewhat to say, hey, you know what? We have people that's potentially coming across our border that could potentially be dangerous. We don't know. They could be families. They could be the drug lords that have learned that as long as they have a child with them and they say that they're family, then we're more apt to opening them up and letting them come into the country, because we cannot block the innocent little children sort of argument.
Yeah, you're being suckered.
Exactly. and we are. And progressives eat it up because they're all about the bleeding heart, emotional, touchy-feely, the innocent children. We can't do that. So this is a prime example of saying we're trying to unite as a nation, and if you're not going to fund the wall, we will use our National Guard to secure the border until we figure something out. And then the progressives saying, no, we're not going to do that. I really think that this is almost an opportunity for the Republicans and the conservatives by saying, look at this. We're trying to secure our border. They're unwilling to work with us. It's time to elect some new people in those states and really start to expose them to start looking towards the midterm elections in November.
Well, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, look, try to bear this in mind. I'm from the other side of the planet, okay? Now, when we can see what's going on over there, you know, we're all scratching our heads going, every time and they've been after Trump since the go-get, right? Sure. Every single time he wants to do something, stonewalled. You know,
sure.
And you think you guys want to build, you've got to protect your borders. You have to. I mean, we're lucky over here. It's one dirty, great big island, bloody big island. But the thing is, you guys, you get interlopers from all over the place, and you know, we in Australia can see that. Why are they giving this guy a hard time? I mean, everything they're throwing at him, and nothing sticks. But when it comes to border protection, you have to do it. You really do, because if it gets to the point where you're going to get overrun.
Sure.
Seriously. And the bleeding heart concept, you know, while it's nice, you know, the humanitarian thing, yada, 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 it's a case of you're either going to do your job, okay, and give me the support that I need for the sake of the nation, not just for you and your state, which is fine, or just pack up your bongos and leave. See you later. Check, please. Table 5, you're gone. And we'll hire someone else that will do the job. I mean, it's not rocket science.
It's really not. Well, and here's the big issue is that there's a political tear right now between the big pull between states' powers and federal powers, and we get that. And I mean, being a conservative, I believe in limited government, less regulation, less federal government control, and the power of the states to have as much control as they possibly can. The problem is that one of the duties, and I don't know how much you follow or you've learned on the history of constitutional law, or the history of the United States, that sort of thing. But we believe in extremely limited power at the federal level and more duties at the state level. But when the states signed on to the social compact of saying we want a federal government, when we signed the Constitution in the early 1800s, the late 1700s, and we started creating and forming this nation, one of the duties that the states gave up to allow the federal government to regulate was international commerce and international trade and foreign relations. And foreign relations falls under immigrants coming in and out of the country because they are from another nation. Therefore, these states that try and hold up and say we're going to be these sanctuary states, we're going to try and defend these illegal immigrants coming in because we get to decide who's coming into our states. By constitutional understanding, if we actually try to interpret the Constitution as the way it's supposed to be, then the federal government, one of the few duties it is supposed to have is to decide who comes in and out of this nation. Once they're in the nation, then it's up to the states to decide where they want to move and what they want to do in the trade between the states and so on and so forth. But the federal government is supposed to regulate foreign relations. That includes immigration. And some of these guys just don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you can't have a representative from every state saying, well, we're here at the airport or border security, and are you coming to California? Sweet, step away. We've got these laws.
Right.
No, it's got to be federal.
Right, exactly. And that's what we have to. We have to have a unified nation that says this is who we're going to accept to allow to come in and out of the country. Once you're in the country, then be as you will wherever you want to go within the country. But we need to have some type of order in that sense. So, and that's really the big tear right now, because the progressives despise Donald Trump to a T so much that they do not care about constitutional law. They do not care about common sense. They don't care about anything, to the point that they will block him in any way, shape, or form that they can, because they truly, honestly think that he was a racist, bigoted, neo-Nazi, white supremacist nut job, and that he's going to completely destroy this nation. I have friends that I went to high school with way back when that are on social media. I follow the other side of the aisle on social media, and they've told me where they travel the world and they feel for the first time in their life, they feel ashamed that they have to come back to their nation that is now leaning towards a fascist mentality because of Donald Trump. And it's completely absurd, but this is truly what they really believe.
Snowflake.
Snowflakes.
There's an American. Yep, there's a word I learned.
Exactly. I do have to ask you, Rick, being in Australia, I know that you guys went through and the big issue that's been happening here in the nation is the whole gun debate and the Second Amendment, and the big confiscation that happened down in Australia with the guns, taking everybody's guns away. How has that changed the nation of Australia? What's it like now? And I mean, where are you guys at? Is there a talk about trying to bring guns back down there?
Okay. Very touchy subject. I'll gladly talk to you off air about it, but yeah. In brief, do not. This is a word of advice. Seriously, if you give up your guns, you're nuts. Okay. We in the state that I live in, right? If you get caught with a slingshot, and I don't know what you call them, but we call them slingshots, and I'm not talking about one of these hunting ones. Yeah, it's like just basically go and grab a hold of a hacksaw or something and find a nice tree branch and go, that'll make a nice V.
Sure.
And make yourself one up, right?
Okay.
Yeah, 10 years jail. It's a prohibited weapon.
A slingshot.
Yeah, slingshot. It's a prohibited weapon. I don't know what you guys call them, hunting slings or whatever.
Well, I mean, I use a slingshot. You know, you got the little the band kind of, and you put the rock or something in there, and it's a lot of fun. But just making that 10 years prison.
Yep, 10 years jail. It's prohibited. Okay, we are not even allowed to have airsoft here.
Wow, unbelievable.
No, we're not allowed to have airsoft here because they think people are going to start practicing things like CQB, this kind of thing,
So you're not allowed to hunt at all?
Well, you can, but the calibers that you can use are pretty small, and you're only allowed 5 shots. They prefer you to have bolt action, so you can't have, and definitely nothing with semi-automatic. Forget it. It's that restrictive over here. You really should, for people that are interested, seriously, do not believe a word I'm saying. Go and have a look at it.
Sure.
It is draconian.
Has there been an uptick in crime?
Yes, and this is the thing. I keep hearing it reported over and over again. Oh, look at Australia, isn't it wonderful? See, they've given their guns up, and it's wonderful. No, it ain't. We've got drive-bys. We've got robberies. We've got all sorts of murder. No.
Wow.
Okay. There's the old saying. Never confuse education with intelligence.
Sure.
Yeah. Never confuse the media with the truth.
I like that. That's a great point to it. It's
not you guys, of course, because you've got way more liberty with regards to talkback than we've got over here.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know if it's a first world problem to where we have just people that are lazy and just don't understand the hard work that went into trying to preserve what we have here. If they just don't understand it, if they just don't care, if they have an alternative motive. But you're right, we have people here that are just so anti whatever America stands for, that it is.
Then why the heck are they there? I mean, God, I would love to live in the US. Mate, we are not even allowed to, militias are, no, they're banned. You can't have them either.
No militias, no firearms, very little hunting.
Nope. Shots are just not happening. If the hunting, it goes, well, mate, I'm a stockman and I've got myself some land out here and I'm a farmer and I've got to get rid of the foxes. Yeah, mate, here's a 22. See you later. You want anything decent? You got to join a club. You're limited to 3 or 8, maybe as a bolt action, and you've got to have a safe mounted on your wall, and the police can come around and check you 24/7 if they want, 3 or 4 days in a row. It doesn't matter. And if one thing is in that it shouldn't be in there, or your weapon's not in there, you're gone.
Knocking on your door and just randomly check your home for any of that kind of stuff to make sure you don't have
Absolutely. And again, please, if people think I'm kidding, go and have a look.
Unbelievable.
It's
Rick,
all there.
I love it. We got to take a break, my friend. I really appreciate you calling in. I got to ask you, how'd you find the show? Where'd you come across us?
Came across you guys on Facebook.
Just
and
popped up on
I
Facebook.
listened for the one show. Yeah, and I thought, ooh, this guy says things that's not really sayable. I'm going to listen to this bloke. And, yep, from there. So now you're on 4 other Facebook sites, and you let me know when you get your site up and running, mate, and I will create you an Android app, and we'll have people from all over the place being able to hit their phones and listen to you live.
Man, we love it. We appreciate that very much. Do you guys have talk radio like this in Australia? Do you guys have people on the radio talking about opinions, calling out the government or the establishment or anything like that?
We have talkback radio, calling out opinions. Yeah, that's very much the finger hovers over the button. You say anything about government, and I'm sorry, our next caller, hello. No,
fun.
No, it's
Nothing
not
like
fun.
that.
It's horrid.
Nothing.
No, you guys are as free as a bird. I mean, you guys now are the way that we used to be 10 years ago.
Okay, and it's tightened up quite a bit since then, man. That's sad. Australia's such a beautiful place. I've wanted to go down there so long and be able to check that out. But Rick, I really appreciate you calling in, my friend. I love the fact that you enjoy the show. I appreciate that very much, my friend. Get some sleep. I know it's like, what do you say, 10 o'clock there at night? Are you a night bird?
Yeah, it's about 11 now. I am a night person, but unfortunately, I've got things to do in the morning, so I've got to get off and get some sleep, eh?
Well, there we go. Well, Rick, I appreciate that very much, my friend. God bless you. We love you. We love you being able to tune in. I appreciate that very much. Got to take a break. 25 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 29 minutes past the hour. Well, that was kind of fun. The Voice of Reason. We may be here in Wichita, Kansas, but we're broadcasting all across the world, baby, and we love that very much. Advancing conservatism not only here, but everywhere else that we possibly can. It's still open line to you, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, no guests today, just you and I chitting the chat. When we come back, we'll shift gears a little bit. There's now a movement, even in the United States, for a basic set guaranteed income by the government for everybody. Would you support something like that? We'll talk about that when we come back. Your thoughts and calls across the board. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Through the fake news on a daily basis.
I hope now you boys see that this is totally serial.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, man, we're just having too much fun today on a Friday. Welcome back into it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. You can shoot me a message on Facebook, facebook.com/1480KQAM. The Facebook live feed is up and rolling. We're right here on the Big Talker, KQAM, and let's go right back to the phones here, shall we? Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, what's happening, sir?
Well, I'm just waiting for the mixed precipitation to come down.
When are we going to get 70-degree weather?
Yeah, well, it's Kansas, and what they're supposed to change every hour or so anyway. I really appreciate your call from Australia. If you get that gentleman on again, be sure to ask him to explain the law in Australia about what to do when your home is invaded by a burglar or a rapist or somebody. Ask him to tell people up here in the United States and the rest of the world whether self-defense is still legal in Australia.
Well, and that's the question. I mean, that's a great point. And to take it even further, he had mentioned that, when they banned the firearms, the government's able to just come in and just, the law enforcement just comes in and can just search your home anytime they want to make sure that you don't have a firearm, which really shows the big difference that we take for granted here in the United States, to where in the United States you're not allowed to have improper searches and seizures of your assets or your property because of the Constitution. And we take these rights for granted that we don't even think about, to where if the law enforcement, I mean, unless there's like a big drug bust and they're barging in to be able to round you up kind of thing, if they're just searching your home, they're not allowed to do that. They have to have a warrant. They have to have a reason for them to come in, rather than just knocking on your door and saying, do you have any firearms? Let me come check it out. And
it's worse than in Australia. In order to have legally a .22 rifle or anything else, they've banned pump-action shotguns. They've banned the semi-automatic shotguns. Which is about all that you can find in the United States anymore. It's illegal in England. It's illegal in Australia to actually use a weapon in self-defense. And if you get a license there and in the United States, depending upon what kind of company you are or what kind of business, you're giving your permission de facto. They can come in and inspect your paperwork when they want. It happens.
Yeah, anytime they want to. And it's
places
crazy.
like New Jersey and California. It hasn't come to Kansas.
Well, and you're right. We're starting to move that way, and that's why we need to remember and Jim, I appreciate the call. We need to remember the founding. We need to remember the purpose of our Constitution. We need to remember the laws and the rights that we have as Americans that nobody else in the rest of the world really gets to enjoy. I mean, they worry about the knock on the door. Do you have any firearms? Let me come check it out. Make sure you don't have any firearms. We're concerned that you may have some. First off, here in the United States, we can say, yes, you're darn right. You're darn skippy. I got a firearm, and you ain't going to know where it is. You're not going to touch it. You're not going to take it away from me. So first off. Second off, you're not allowed to come into my home unless I actually allow you to come into my home or you have a search warrant. And they don't have that. The difference between the rights that we have as a free nation that we just take for granted, that would never, if we lived down there, we wouldn't even fathom an idea like that or a concept like that where people just barge into your home and just search whatever you have just for the sake of doing so, because we have those rights here in the United States. We have like you said, we're free as a bird here in the United States. We have the rights to do really what we want to do as a nation, and we need to remember that, and we need to hold that dear to us, and we need to be able to defend that with every fiber of our being, because it is slowly slipping away. It's slowly slipping away. I've seen, and I've been in this discussion, and I'm really sick and tired of it on social media, and I'm not going to respond to it any longer, but it's about the Chris Kobach registering to vote. And them trying to quote the Constitution over and over and over and over and over, saying that just because you meet the requirements, that you're of age, that you're a U.S. citizen, and that you're a resident of the state, that you are all of a sudden an elector, and you're just guaranteed that right without any type of verification in any way, shape, or form. And it is the dumbest, stupidest argument that I've ever heard my entire life. There's no thought process behind it, because you have to verify and prove yourself in that sense. And then they try and throw in the sense that, well, you don't want any background checks for firearms, which is not true. Yes, we want background checks. Guess what? We have to register ourselves to show that what we're doing is we're actually allowed to be doing these things, and that we're verified, that we're not a criminal, that we're not going to have bad intentions, that we've done this before, so on and so forth. But we do that to secure the rights that we have. Voting is one of the most precious rights that we can possibly have in the nation. Voting, to have one person, one vote, to be able to represent an individual, to be able to vote for an electorate, to be able to choose who's going to represent us, is one of the most precious processes in the entire world that anybody could have, because government is important to have that transparency and that accountability to it. And we need to make sure that who's voting is proper. Now we're seeing other states want to actually register their individuals and inmates who are in prison, who are in jail, who've done bad things, and say, yeah, you know what? You have the right, apparently, to be able to voice your concern on who you want to represent you as an inmate who has no place in society in any way, shape, or form. And I can't support something like that. Voting is a privilege that we need to uphold. Yes, it's a right to have your voice heard. It is a privilege as long as you are following the rule of law. And the Kansas Constitution, along with the U.S. Constitution, gives a few requirements to do so. And in order for us to verify that you meet those requirements, we go through the proper steps and procedures to verify that. Then you get your nice little voting card, and you can vote however you'd like to do so. The same with driver's license. You get your driver's license before you actually drive on the road, right? Before you get married. You just don't get married and all of a sudden, poof, there you're married. You may have 3 other marriages already in line, but it doesn't matter. You can get married anytime you want. You're right. No, you have to verify. You have the right to marry whoever you want to marry in many states, even with the more controversial stuff, which I don't want to get into. But you have the right to marry whoever you want to marry, but you got to verify that you're not married in the first place. We have to remember that with rights, with privileges, with rights that we have in this nation that are more important and really more free than any other nation on the face of the earth, comes responsibility with that. We need to secure these rights with procedures, not oppressing them or suppressing them, not getting rid of them, and not walking all over our rights, but preserving them with a system, with a process. There's a very big difference there, and some people just don't grasp that. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Nate.
Hey, what's going on, Nate? How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to mention, one of the purposes of them trying to remove this right is because this is the one that protects all of our other rights whenever they're coming against the Second Amendment.
Sure.
And the leftist progressive movement knows that. And that's what they've done in other countries, and that's what we see in Canada. We have Canadian friends, and it's much like you were saying in Australia, you cannot defend yourself, and the government can come check for guns at any moment, night or day, and if you don't have it where it's supposed to be, you go to prison.
It's kind of the domino effect, isn't it? I mean, the Second Amendment says that, we get to defend ourselves. So if the government becomes oppressive and begins taking away our rights, that we have the duty and responsibility and ability to say, it ain't going to happen. We're going to put you back in your place. And if the Second Amendment's gone and we're not able to protect ourselves, the First Amendment can fall. You're not allowed to believe in whatever religion you want to believe in. You're not allowed to believe in whatever freedom of speech that you want to have. Talk radio would die out. People would not be allowed to have the voice that they're allowed to have. We'd begin censoring like we're already starting to see on social media. They'd be able to seize your property and assets with improper searches and seizures that is defended and protected by the Constitution. They could raise bail to whatever they want to without excessive bail. It's the domino effect where everything could fall, because if they did it, what could we do about it other than sit back, complain, and say that we're going to vote them out of office? But they're already working on trying to repeal the Electoral College. They're already trying to change in gerrymandering and changing the district lines. We would essentially have a government with complete control, and we would have no way to threaten them and say, you know what, you're not allowed to do this, because the one amendment that actually protected us from all of that fell for the first time. And you're right, they absolutely see that, and that's their hidden agenda.
Yep, they want to remove our ability to protect ourselves because then they can control everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's the whole goal in what they're doing. So we have to be very wise in what we allow to go on, because they remove self-protection.
What else is left?
Then, they control it all.
What else is left? I completely agree, my friend. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for the call. Have a great weekend. Now, I don't want to put on the tinfoil hat and be the conspiracy theorist here about the government trying to come and take our guns away and trying to take everything away. But come on, you got to admit that there's an agenda there, that if that one thing does fall, what else is left for us to be able to stand up? What else is left? I mean, we're talking about, according to MSNBC, more Americans now support a universal basic income. Just 10 years ago, only 12% of Americans approved of a universal basic income. Today, 48% of Americans believe and support according to the Northeastern University Gallup survey of 3,000 adults, it represents an enormous increase in support for a universal basic income. That is a blatant violation of our rights. Because how are they going to control that? They're going to know exactly where you're working, what you're doing, how often you're working, what you need, yada, yada, yada. It gives the government more control to tax you, more government control to regulate you, and then you're going to get that income. It's a blatant violation. It is a complete change from constitutional republicanism to socialism with a basic universal. Are you kidding me? A basic universal income, and 48% of Americans, according to this study. Now it's only 3,000 people, but it's from a university, but it's a Gallup poll, so it's a little bit more credible, I guess. Take everything with a grain of salt. But a universal basic income, are you kidding me? 48% of Americans support something like that. Your thoughts on that? Let's go back to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy, it's Pam.
Pam, how are you today?
Well, hanging in there.
Good.
I said something the other day about we need to get rid of these crazy schools. And my husband comes up with this letter to the editor last night, and this guy is saying the Second Amendment was enacted in 1791, and slaves made up a third of the population. And we needed this Second Amendment to go and round up runaway slaves. Now, they're getting this junk from somewhere. And the only place I can think of is our sweet public schools. Or
well, they probably taught that.
too.
They probably taught that class right after the gender neutral pronoun lecture.
Holy cow. Well, and this guy, he said that anyone with a gun is a coward.
Sure.
Because we only want our guns so we can have mastery over everyone. Well, I hate to tell this guy, but if he would ever read any of the founding documents, this was for us to guard against the type of government that we are getting in Washington
now,
right now.
Who said this? A friend of your husband, or is
no?
this?
It was an editorial in our lovely,
sure,
unprejudiced Wichita Eagle.
Sure. Well, put this into perspective here. You're right, because, we've heard the argument that the people love to cling to their guns and their Bibles, and they're uneducated, and they're hillbilly backwoods, yada, yada,
You're
yada.
right.
And they've already tried to label us as the uneducated fools in the nation that likes to cling to our guns and Bibles. Then we heard that it is the white privileged male who's concerned about his job or concerned about his income, concerned about the stability of his family, so therefore his insecurities have led him to carry his firearm. That one didn't catch on. So now they're trying to play into of course, the white privilege that happened from our founding fathers, the property owners, the richie riches that wanted to control the nation and had their powers at bay. And now you're right, we are the ones who wanted to round up all the slaves, when of course that's obviously blatant. And if anybody even looks at a middle school book on the government and on the founding fathers, that the Second Amendment was written so that way we can actually defend ourselves against an oppressive government the way we did during the Revolutionary War. And if they looked a little bit further, they'd understand that even the NRA and different organizations defending the Second Amendment were there to give guns to the African Americans so they can help fight the racist oppressors.
Well, the Democrats don't want to know that it was actually the Republicans that supported civil rights, not the Democrats.
It's unbelievable. Did you hear? This all ties into one, and I don't know if you heard the show last night, but I got to fill in for Armed American Radio again last night at 8 o'clock.
Just a little bit.
But did you hear the story? Deerfield, Illinois, a little village, ended up passing a village ordinance to ban all semi-automatic rifles. And by the end of June, if you have not removed those guns and given them up, it's a $1,000 fine per day to fine you for carrying a semi-automatic rifle in your home because they want it to be a gun-free place.
Now, I want to know, how are you going to enforce that law? Are you coming to my home?
That's what they want to do.
Searching my home illegally?
That's what they want to do. They want to have every gun registered, and if you have a gun registered that is a semi-automatic rifle, then they will be there every day knocking on your door and writing you a citation of a $1,000 fine. Because, again, just like our last caller had mentioned, that not only are they trying to repeal the Second Amendment, but everything topples after that, including especially the Fourth Amendment with the right to protect yourself from improper searches and seizures, because after they take away the guns, then if you have a gun still left, then we get to come and bombard your home and make sure that you don't have any.
Well, and that's why the founders said, we won't sign this without the second.
Right.
And, I just don't understand how people can be so ignorant.
Well,
it just
again,
drives
it
me
is
wild.
it is the emotional argument over the facts. I always joke and I say that your feelings are not my factual problems, which is absolutely the case, because again, all of these arguments about having the drug lords that may have a child with them coming across the border means that we're the emotional touchy-feely, can't break up the family, let them into the country. The pregnant woman that's going to try and get birthright citizenship with her child, let her out of prison because we can't have an 8-month-old, 8-month a long woman that's pregnant staying in a prison. We can't, have the guns around because it hurts the child. It's the emotional arguments over the common-sensible, reasonable arguments, and we have to start fighting that and start saying that, you know what? Emotion and feeling does not have a place in policymaking and legislation, in politics in general, or at least in common sense.
Well, and I've been in several militias in my life. And, I mean, people don't even know what a militia actually is. I have fixed more tires, jerked more people out of ditches. It's like your little hometown National Guard,
Oh, come on, Pam. Being in a militia, you have the guns and you're ready to overthrow the government right now, and you're working on underground conspiracies to try and rally everyone. That's what you're doing with the militia. Come on.
We probably could have had we had the need, but we were too busy helping our neighbors, and that's all a militia has been is helping your neighbor.
Sure, and I mean, look at the issue that happened in Garden City. The militia members that turned in the couple of their own because they said, "Wait a second, you want to bomb that apartment complex with the Somali immigrants in there? That's not what we do and what we stand for." And they're the ones that reached out to the FBI and said, "You guys need to do something about this because we don't want to be associated with these guys."
That's right.
It's exactly what it is.
Exactly right.
Pam, I love it. Have a great weekend to you. I appreciate it very much. Got some more calls on the line. Stay there. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. This is the Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back in. Wrapping up hour number 2. It's going by way too fast. It's an open line Friday, free for all Friday for you. Let's go right back to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, morning, sir. It's Drew.
Drew, what's happening?
Hey, been listening to the show this morning and last night. A point I thought was relevant to make.
What's that?
You ever watch herd animals that have been domesticated? Man has changed the nature of them and made them to where where they're domesticated. They're placid.
Sure.
They stand around. They let people, they let someone take care of them. They do what everyone else in the herd does.
Sure.
They heard there's water over there. They're going to go that way. They heard this. They heard that. They go this way. They go that way. Following the crowd.
Welcome to the progressives.
So, when you look at the Constitution, where does it say where does it say our rights come from?
Well, from ourselves, what we grant ourselves, because we are supposed to be the leaders.
No. It's very specific. These rights are endowed unto us not by government, by God or nature's God.
Sure.
And so when you have all of these people, like David Hogg and so many of these others who want to go ahead and change the nature of who we are, to change the nature of man, who want to have us stand around and wait for someone else to take care of us, someone else to make sure that we're safe.
Well, look,
who are these people? I mean, my question is, who are these people that they think they have the wisdom to challenge the God or nature's God?
See, here's the thing, Drew, and I appreciate it. We're running out of time here, but here's the thing: they don't care. We have too many people that are followers, like those sheep, like those cattle, like the ones like you mentioned that are domesticated after you feed the animal too many times in the wild and they come back to you for the food because they are domesticated. They look for the leader. They want someone to lead them and hold their hands, and that's not what we're about as a nation, but that's what they believe in. Hour number 3 coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you can put it on the ballot, and if you can get 51% of naive, ignorant individuals to not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment, to not understand the purpose of shooting a gun, to not understand the role of what having a gun or a militia is all about, to understand the background check process. You don't understand because you've never done it. To have that much of a voice. It is the blind leading the blind.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. You finally made it. The end of the week is finally here, and it is a Friday. Which means, as usual, it's a free-for-all Friday. Anything on your mind? No guest at this hour. Just you and I chit in the chat, advancing conservatism to your liking. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. We have the Facebook Live feed that's up and rolling as well. Like it, share it, leave a comment, ask a question, say good morning, call me a jerk. I don't really care. I've been called worse. It's all right. I got to say, you want to talk about fake news? You want to talk just for a second? I got to go off on this rant just for a second. It's a Friday. We can have a little fun with it. I need to go off on this rant for just a teeny tiny second. This whole story, if you've been watching the news, if you care in any way, shape, or form about the UFC, MMA, Conor McGregor going off and shattering the window of the bus. He's had some felony charges, misdemeanor charges brought up on him in New York City. I get it. Not really the smartest thing to do. First off, no, you want to talk about fake news, hashtag fake news. No one has mentioned the fact that Khabib, the Russian schmuck that Conor McGregor was going after, had used 15 of his cronies to go and beat up one of Conor McGregor's trainers. Or he started the whole thing. He went and he taunted somebody, he beat him up, he caused some scenes with him and like 15 other guys. So Conor McGregor, don't mess with him, and he's retaliating. And yeah, I got a little extreme. Not to mention they were stripping the belt away from him, which I strongly disagree with because Conor McGregor deserves that belt forever and ever and ever. But just went and ended up, I don't know if you saw the news, but he went and grabbed a table or grabbed a little metal fence or something and went and bashed in the window of the van after the press conference, and Khabib's people, I guess a couple of them got injured. And now Conor McGregor turned himself in to the police, got it taken care of. There's a couple little things that he's going to have to deal with, but you know what? Don't mess with Conor McGregor. Fake news, you're not given the real story on the retaliation, only the fact that he's a terrible human being. That's just not the case. 316-721-8255. If you want to join in here, let's go ahead and kick off hour number 3 with a phone call. Shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is Bill. How are you?
I'm great, Bill. How are you today?
Hey, I'm not too bad. I just kind of found your show here recently and everything, and I had a question about the concern with Americans worried about, the government coming and taking everybody's guns and everything. And I obviously don't want that to happen, but at the same time, who do these people think are going to come and get the guns? I mean, the military is. Do you really think that the soldiers and the enlisted men are going to go against their beliefs and how they feel about things and come and take everyone's gun? Are they going to obey orders and do this? I mean, who are the people that are going to actually come and take the gun?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question, and it's been. Here's my personal thought on this, because everybody's got their own opinion on it. Some would say that the military would come, or the National Guard, or the law enforcement. And Bill, I appreciate the call and the question. My personal opinion is that there would be a tear in, just like everybody else. I mean, even if you're in military, you have your own opinion. Some would say that, nah, you know what, that's not right. I'm not going to support something like that, and we're not going to enforce something like that. Others would say that there are going to be some that just follow their duty, and when they get that call of duty, that's what they're going to support. And I would use the example of Deerfield, Illinois, that just happened earlier this week on Monday, where the city council of the village of Deerfield, Illinois, voted to ban semi-automatic rifles. And by the end of June, anybody that still has a semi-automatic rifle in their home is going to be fined $1,000 per day. Now, the USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association, has already started a lawsuit against them, taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's going to work up the food chain. Now, the progressives in that sense are using the example of another town in Illinois a few years ago that did the exact same thing, where the Supreme Court did not pick up the case, and they just deferred it back down to the local court that ended up upholding the right for that town to be able to do so. So, for example, if we say that Wichita now, the Wichita city area, all of a sudden put in a city ordinance that said, you know what, we don't want any automatic rifles. I mean, I just saw a story here that came out of Cake TV yesterday that says concerns over teens and guns in Wichita and how there's been an uptick in gun violence in the city, and teenagers are starting to have them. We've talked about a piece of legislation at the state legislature saying that there was going to be potentially a bill to raise the minimum age of purchase of firearm to the age of 21. And if that's the case, who's going to enforce it? If you have a hunt with your child, 18 years old, and you go out to go hunting and you give them a gun, are we going to be enforcing that? Are we going to come down on them, and who would enforce that? So you bring up a good question. The problem is that there would be people, in my opinion, that would decide to say, hey, you know what? That's the law now. The law is the law. Whether I support it or I don't support it, I wear the badge. That's my duty, and that's what I have to go do. You would have law enforcement. This Deerfield, Illinois, this town, you know that they're going to have the local law enforcement be knocking on the doors and saying, do you have your semi-automatic rifle? You had one registered. We haven't seen you turn it in yet. Therefore, we're going to start fining you $1,000 a day. And they're going to be the ones that are knocking on the door that really may try and come into the home to search it. Unreasonable searches and seizures, violation of the Fourth Amendment, the taking away of the Second Amendment, because that's their duty. Now, it's going to be done incrementally, and we need to remember that it's not going to be this mass big. The federal government has put out the ordinance to go door to door and round up every single firearm in the entire nation, and we're going to use the military, we're going to use National Guard, we're going to use all this, and we're going to come in and just sweep the nation from door to door, and it's just going to be this big thing. And that kind of mentality, you're right, we would not tolerate that, and most individuals that were given that order would not follow that. The progressives, as you know, are going to be chipping away at the agenda little by little by little by little by little by little by little. Something conservatives are very bad at, and I'll be the first to admit it. We went all of it right now, or else we ain't going to get it. When we talk about budgets, when we talk about legislation, we went all of our agenda right now, or else we're not going to support the bill because it's not good enough, it doesn't go far enough. That's our fault. We need to work on being able to chip away at the agenda in increments. Progressives have done it since FDR. President Franklin Roosevelt understood that if you do it through generational times, then you're able to take it away. They're not going to come door to door. They're going to educate individuals that guns are bad. They're going to get to the youth like they have already with the Smarts for Our Lives and with David Hogg and all these others, saying that guns are terrible and they're harming the children. They are going to educate people and try and congregate them into large mass cities and populations, because if you notice, the gun laws are more stringent in larger populated areas like cities than they are out in the country and the rural communities. Chicago has very few people with guns, and they have some of the most stringent laws. Most places with gun-free zones or with gun restrictions are in larger cities. So why do you think that we're trying to herd people into the cities? We're going to do it slowly and incrementally, and then you're going to see some of these towns. Then you're going to get some of these villages. Then you're going to get some of these places that are wanting to just flat out ban the firearm and then have the local law enforcement start to do that. And if small little towns throughout the nation begin to do this little by little, there's going to be no sanctuary for you to defend your Second Amendment right. And it may work up to the state. And it may work up to some legislation at the federal level. But notice how the majority of constructive legislation and things that are actually done quicker are done at the local, city, county, and state levels. And it's going to start there. And the state trooper may come and, do you have a registered firearm? We banned that, and we're going to put a fine on your door, and you're going to continue to pay that, and you're going to have to go to court, and you're going to pay this, and it's going to be the incremental steps. It's not going to be the mass walk across the entire nation and knock on your door. So, and that's the big misconception, because you're absolutely right, Bill, that we don't want, nor do I think that would happen with having the mass knocking on everybody's door across the nation through the Army and actually doing that. We will see, though, the incremental taking away by education, by small legislation in local cities and towns, and little by little, there's just going to be fewer guns that they're going to have to try and fight to confiscate later, because less and less people are going to have them. It's going to be done incrementally. It's going to be done over a large span of time. It's not going to be done just in the click of a finger. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
It's Wallace.
Wallace, what's happening, sir?
Oh, I was just, here you were talking about, the gun confiscation. And, two things. One, if they can do this with firearms, something that is constitutionally guaranteed, where, supposedly the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, it should trump anything local.
Sure.
What if they just decide they don't like knives over 2-inch blades, or they don't like blue-colored T-shirts, or they don't like, Ford vehicles in their town? They can just willy-nilly go in there, and let's face it, you don't have a right to a blue T-shirt or a Ford pickup or anything else.
Sure.
So it doesn't stop there. The other thing, I saw an article yesterday. California has issued 1 million driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
Yes.
And I got to thinking about that. Now,
how do they get them?
Illegal alien, what's that?
How do they get them? They don't have. If they're an illegal immigrant, they don't have any documentation. They don't have a social security number. They don't have any paperwork proving that they're here legal. How do they get the driver's license?
Oh, because California did it. And now that person who is in the country illegally has the legal right to operate throughout the continental U.S. because he has a driver's license.
Sure.
Now, driving a car, we've all been taught, is a privilege. Then why does my concealed carry license from Kansas not apply to every other state as well?
Because they don't like that right being you're right, the difference between a privilege and a right, and they don't like that right being used across state lines. They don't like them being used really, period. But apparently a driver's license can really get you anywhere. If you have a million plus illegal immigrants gaining a driver's license, then you can register to vote. So now you got more votes. Look, you just increased your voter base by 1 million people. I mean, come on, that right there is what their main priority is.
Well, no, and I absolutely get that. But why don't states, look, if California's going to thumb their nose at the feds, then why don't good, decent states, Texas, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, why don't we simply say, look, either you're going to honor our concealed carry license in your states or your driver's license isn't welcome in our state? Look, this goes both ways or it doesn't go at all. And by the way, keep your gay marriage license out of my state too. Why is it only certain licenses transcend state lines, but the one thing you have, which is the right to keep and bear arms, you don't have a right to a marriage, gay, straight, or otherwise. You don't have a right to drive a car, but you have a right to keep and bear arms. And of all the rights, it's the only one that says shall not be infringed, but it's really the only one that gets infringed.
Well, you're right, and I appreciate that, Wallace. You hit it on, is the fact that it's one right to where we have that we should be defending, that we should fight for left and right. We don't. We allow it to be abused, and like we mentioned in the last hour, that once that one falls and topples, everything else will fall and topple after that as well. Everything will topple and fall after that. The freedom of speech. Oh, you have a social media account. You're saying stuff we don't like. We're going to censor you. You can't do that. You can't block all my stuff on Facebook or on Twitter, or on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. Yeah, we kind of can. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to sue you. Okay, good luck with that. We got activist judges in the courts. Wait, we got to stop that. How are you going to stop it? We're going to elect somebody different. Oh, that's nice, but you live in a district where we just redrew the lines to where it's secured and you're never going to have a voice again because, well, we just allowed 1 million different illegals to be able to get their driver's license, which means they can now register to vote, which means you're probably outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. That's where we're at. We need to fight for these things, and every little bit matters. I know that we try and talk radio and 24-hour news outlets and the media itself has dramatized stuff so much to where you're very numb to these types of stories, and they don't necessarily register as a very dangerous kind of thing and are worrisome thing, and we need to be concerned about it right now. I understand that because we use that for, come on, admit it, talk radio and TV and everybody uses it for the ratings. If you're drawn in because you're really scared in the politics of fear, then you're going to be drawn in and continue to be active and engage, that sort of thing. And that happens even on non-important issues, which is why a lot of things I come back and when it's a big hype nationally and I'm like, whatever, let's move on to the big thing because we got more important things to focus on. I get a lot of heat for that once in a while, but I want to stay focused on the priorities because if we are going to be fired up and we are going to be upset and we are going to be engaged, it needs to be for the right reasons, and we need to focus our energies on the right issues. And we need to stay focused on that. And this one is kind of a big issue. When it comes to registering to vote, when it comes to being able to get your driver's license, and when it comes to being able to defend your Second Amendment right to own a firearm, a semi-automatic rifle, a fully automatic rifle, a shotgun, a whatever, because I don't want to be having to spend the next 10 years in prison for having a handgun in my home. and the government having the right to storm into my house and look for it because they have the right to do so, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. That is going to be unacceptable, but eventually, guess what? It very well could potentially happen. 22 minutes past the hour, your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 27 minutes past the hour on a free-for-all Friday. We love all the phone calls, had a lot of them this morning. Let's keep it rolling, baby. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Listener on Facebook, did you really say 48% for what? Universal income? Yes. According to CNBC, the personal finance, and according to the latest study, according to Northeastern University and Gallup, of surveying more than 3,000 U.S. adults, 48% of Americans now support a universal basic income. 10 years ago, with the same poll, same study, same university, was only 12%. According to a professor at Georgetown University in Qatar, it represents an enormous increase in support, and it's very promising, according to them who want to advocate for the universal basic income. So there you go. People wanting to do this. It's being tried across the world right now. Pilots programs like this are underway in Finland and in Canada as they give the universal basic income. And the reason this has started now in the U.S. and why it's gained so much support, according to the survey, was because of how many jobs are being lost due to computers, automation, to where the low-income jobs are not necessarily needed as much because they've been able to be automated in many of those cases. And everybody that was working those are now jobless. And now we want to push for the universal basic income. We had a caller just a few days ago on the show saying that we should believe if anybody making less than $50,000 or less should stand up and protest and walk out because they need to be making at least $50,000 is the minimum salary across the nation for waitresses, for fry cooks, for whoever, for what, it doesn't really matter. Everybody should be making $50,000. Of course, meaning that the poverty line would then be drawn at $60,000, and then you need to make $100,000 just to be able to survive the way you do right now with the median income being close to $45,000, $50,000 in the state of Kansas. What is it, $45,000, $46,000? That if we raise it up to $50,000, guess what? You wouldn't even be able to survive unless you made $70,000, $80,000. How many people are going to be able to do that? Instead of actually educating these people and saying, okay, yeah, your job may be gone because it was maybe on the lower end of the spectrum and you weren't making very much and it's been automated now because it's easier and cheaper for the company. Let's get you educated and work your way up and actually work a position that they can't replace you on. It's a crazy, wild concept. I know 48% of Americans, according to this study, now believing in a universal basic income. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we come back as well. Plus, it's open line to you for the last half hour. What's on your mind? This is The Voice of Reason.
We can keep this going on. We'll make it work some way. And every step it makes us stronger every day. And if you're thinking
When taxes go up, so do our tempers.
Oh my God, no!
Fighting for Kansans every day. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into it. Great to have you along today. It is a Friday. The Free for All Friday rolls right along the last half hour of the program. I don't know where it went today. This has been a fun one. We appreciate all the phone calls. Let's keep it rolling. 316-721-8255. Anything you want to talk about, bothering you, troubling you, I am your political therapist. Let's work through it together. I'll sit back, I'll smoke my pipe, I'll listen to you, and we'll break down your troubles on a daily basis. 316-721-8255. Everybody on social media, Facebook Live, talking about the universal basic income. Just why? Where are we going to get that money? Look, we just talked to somebody a couple of days ago wanting a minimum salary of $50,000 in the nation. Just imagine if we did a universal basic income of $50,000 per everyone. Anyone in the entire nation making less than $50,000, you get a basic universal set income. And then whatever you work on top of that, then you actually get. How would we support that? We're already trillions of dollars. What is it? $23 trillion in debt now as a nation. We just passed an omnibus bill of $1.3 trillion. We're in debt. We're still, even with the largest amount of tax revenue coming in the nation than ever before in record U.S. history, we're still coming in less than what we're spending each month. We still have a deficit that we grow every single year. Tell me how we're going to get a basic income of $50,000, $40,000, universal basic income, and then whatever on top of that. It's absurd to think about, but yet, according to the latest study, 48% of Americans now believe in that because they are concerned about their jobs going away due to technology and automation. So instead of actually training them in a different field to go on and do something else, now we just need to play them as the victim and just give them a set basic universal income. Phones lighting up. Let's get your take on this. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Paul.
Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Randy. How about you?
Hey, we're having more fun than we should be.
You're my political therapist today.
I love it. Well, let me play the music here. We'll get this. We'll get the theme and the tone all set for you. How can I help you, my friend?
Okay, please. This has been traumatic. What?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. What you got? What's bothering you?
Oh, okay. I'd like to watch all types of talk shows and news and opinions, etc.
Sure, that's a good thing to do.
I hope so, because this stuff's hard to figure out. And I try to remain objective.
Sure.
And I listen for keywords or maybe what you might call buzzwords, etc.
Okay.
And then I get on the internet and I get on a search engine and I start Googling or Firefoxing these keywords.
Sure.
And then, I'll get hits and I'll start reading all the hits. I especially read all of the ones that I do not agree with.
Okay.
To try to
Good.
determine my perspective also.
Absolutely.
To check on my opinion, etc.
Sure.
I would like to think of myself as a apolitical constitutionalist.
Okay. I like that.
Now, I know the Constitution fairly well, and if I need to refer to it, I have it right here in front of me, etc.
Sure.
I'm 62 years old. I'm a product of the public school system from the 60s, basically. Graduated high school, 73,
okay,
etc. So I've been, doing this for a long time. Matter of fact, I found your show by watching Alex Jones on this so-called Great Plains TV.
Absolutely.
And I don't see how that makes me ignorant.
No, not at all. Not at all.
A lot of your regular callers, perhaps Pam and Helen, all these poor people are educated in the public school system. They don't know nothing about the Constitution, yada, 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 yada. I never heard any buzzwords I can check on search engines. I'm always trying to understand at depth the true conservative values.
Sure.
And if I get buzzwords like limited government, okay, I go do research on limited government, and I can't find any specific policies that could be enacted into like legislations, laws, etc., that reflect that.
Well, that's a good, let's start right there. I mean,
one last
sure,
point.
Okay.
And it just flew out, whatever that last point was.
I interrupted you and I distracted you. I'm sorry.
I guess I just hang up now. I mean, watch everything, check everything, listen to all opinions,
sure,
and formulate your own. Don't be opinionated. The more you doubt your opinion, the more your opinion could be right. The more you check on your opinion, the more you'll find your opinion can become what is known as fact. By being an objective observer and analyzer of everything. I don't know how else to summarize it, Mr. Therapist.
Well, you know what?
I'm going to continue to watch. Throw out buzzwords out there for me to do objective fact-checking on it. I'll read all opinions with an objective mind. And thanks for doing whatever you're trying to do there, Andy.
Well, Paul, I appreciate the call, and that was a beautiful therapy session. I very much appreciate that. And here's a response to you: is you're right. I mean, we do want to throw out the words so to be able to research them, the catchphrases, the terms, whatever we want to do in order to educate ourselves. And I give you credit for that you're able to and that you want to look at all sides of the aisle, that you maybe watch Alex Jones, you listen to my show, you watch MSNBC, you maybe watch Fox News, you listen to different talk shows, you listen to all the different opinions and come up on your own. And just as actually our caller from Australia mentioned in the last hour, was that we don't want to tell you how to think, we just want you to think. And we want you to come up with your own opinion. And that's why when I love when people call in and argue and debate with me, because number one, that means that they're engaged in what I have to say with my opinion. And number two, that they feel that they're comfortable enough with their position that they've understood it enough to try and dialogue and debate with me on that. And I respect individuals that stick to their guns and debate on the issues that they believe in, even if we disagree. If they're able to hold their own, which I mean, I'm not an expert at debating, but I'd like to hold myself up to say that I'm a decent debater because I enjoy it so much. And I'm really good at it, I would like to think. And if you're able to hold your own, then I respect you for that. We're going to disagree, but at least I'll respect you for it. If you waver and if you're wishy-washy, then I don't. So you're right. We want to be objective. We want to look at it, and that's why this show is trying to be called The Voice of Reason, as we try and look at it reasonably, without the emotion, without the BS, without the spin, without the manipulation, and we just look at the straight-up facts on what's actually happening, and we give our opinion by the observation on there. I love listening to the opposition, which is why I just throw wrenches in the system with social media just to upset people, because it's really kind of fun, and because I want to see if they're able to defend their position, and I just want to see what they're saying. I want to see what the opposition's saying about it. And I don't like the generalizations. I mean, for example, limited government. What does that actually mean? Well, limited government is a very broad spectrum issue. How do we address it? Well, we can look at how we can limit the government. If there's a tax bill and there's more spending and more regulation and more control the government's getting by increasing spending on a certain issue, I would not support that, because that's not supporting limited government. If there's a regulation that's coming out like Barack Obama had done so many times during his administration for the Water Act, through the EPA, through the Agricultural Department, through the Department of Housing and Human Services, whatever, if there's a new regulation coming out that's going to increase their control over the private sector, that's a lack of limited government, because that's not limiting the size and the power and the influence and the control of the government. And I wouldn't support something like that. So it's a great point, and I appreciate you very much for listening and being able to keep intact and listening to all of the ideas. I am as you mentioned, a constitutional conservative, and that's what we try to uphold here. Now, you mentioned the education system. Going through the education system in the 60s is a little bit different than today. I mean, it was still, I'm sure that it still had its issues back then, but today, the reason we bring it up so much today is because what you were taught of the Constitution then is not what you're taught now in the public schools in any way, shape, or form. And the young generation now, really anybody under 30, under 25, they're really having an issue understanding the importance of the Constitution and the vital role that the Founding Fathers actually implemented and what their role was at that time, because they're being taught that the Founding Fathers were nothing but a bunch of white supremacist landowning slave owners that just wanted to use the nation to abuse their power. And that's really the kind of control that they're taught in education today. Not all across the board, but in many aspects. So I appreciate that call. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, Scott. What's going on, sir?
Well, the Edward County Commissioners, the City Council, and the Bicycle Mayor have already proven that they're only work for special interests. They're not interested in bringing jobs or any type of progress here to Wichita. They're just interested in serving the boss hog types here in this part of the country. And so if you want somebody who's going to really do something, you're going to have to start voting some politicians like Donald Trump, who work for the people and not for the special interests.
Great point there. Well, I will say that I know that we have been very critical and harsh on them at the city and the county level, and I appreciate that comment, Scott. I want to squeeze in one more before a break here, but I will say that I know that with the state's economic issues that we've been struggling through. It really hasn't done very well for our economic development, for a lot of industries to come in here, for a lot of job growth to come in here, for a lot of people wanting to move to the state. And if we're going to raise taxes, that's going to make it even more difficult to where it's really out of the hands of the city and the county. I will agree with you, though, that we definitely need to focus on economic development, and let's give them some time and let's see what they can come up with, and then we'll make that judgment as we go along here. I think that we made a devastating mistake by not allowing the Tyson chicken plant to come to the area, because that was a diverse job industry that we don't normally have here that we could have brought in. So I think that we did make a big mistake on that one. So I agree with you on that sense. I would be very cautious on trying to just throw in the towel right now, when I'd like to see not only what the state's doing, but what they're going to be doing to counter that at the local level. So I appreciate that. Let's squeeze in one more phone call here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Do I get to double dip this morning or what?
You got about a minute and a half. Go for it.
Okay, so you were talking about universal basic income.
Yes.
And then we talk about government schools and how education now isn't being taught the way it used to be, and that's because they don't teach civics.
Sure.
What they're taught is, well, geez, if everybody gets more money, then everybody will have a better life, and that's just great. But what they don't understand is if person A makes $30,000 a year, person B is making $50,000 a year. Person B is going to have a more expensive house payment. Person B is going to have a nicer, maybe a more expensive car payment, better cable package.
Higher tax rates.
Yeah, well, he's going to have a better life. Well, then what happens when person A is all of a sudden just bumped up to person B, they're bumped from 30,000 to 50,000. Now everything else has gotten more expensive, but the guy at 50,000 didn't get a pay raise. Now he's got to get rid of his cable. He's got to sell his car. He's got to downgrade because his life just got infinitely more expensive at the snap of a finger.
Sure. And the standard of living, the cost of living is going to be increased dramatically by inflation with that. Look, if you're noticing, we're seeing the squeezing of the middle class more and more and more. If you make more than $120,000, Barack Obama used to say, then you need to be paying the highest tax rate because you really don't need more than $120,000 a year. So we need to tax you really, really high to where really after you make all this money, you're really between $50,000 and $60,000 take-home pay. Now they want to raise the universal basic income up to whatever it is, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. We're really going to have a window of 90% of the population being squeezed in to the realm of between $50,000 and $100,000. And that's the middle class. The poor are going to be way below that poverty level underneath there, and they're going to be hyped up through a basic universal income. And then anybody on top of that is going to be taxed so much it ain't going to be worth it living in those standards up there above $120,000. So they really want the elites up at the top controlling everything, and then they want the entire nation crammed into one middle class unit between $50,000 and $100,000. Is that really the way society is going to flourish?
Well, if you bump it to $50,000, those people who just got that pay raise to $50,000, they're going to wonder why milk is $6 a gallon.
Exactly.
And a loaf of bread is $3, and they're going to be like, I'm no better off than I was when I was making $30.
Exactly, and no one's still going to be able to live off that. Wallace, I love it. I got to take a break, my friend, wrapping up the show today, but great points and great calls. I mean, you're right. The standard of living, great. You can make $50,000. Get ready for a $6 gallon of milk and a $12 loaf of bread. That's just the way it is.
Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Today, welcome back in, wrapping up the show. It's gone by way too fast. I tell you what, I love all the conversations, all the calls, great topics, great discussions on a Free for All Friday. Not only a Free for All Friday, but as you know, this portion of the Voice of Reason brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe. It is a fried chicken Free for All Friday. I can see it. It's going to be a mad free-for-all for everybody rushing to the table to scramble, and there's going to be chicken flying up in the air and things happen. It's going to be like a Conor McGregor incident. It's just like happened in New York with people fighting over the fried chicken. Katie's on the line with us. I can see this happening very soon.
Do not fight over the chicken, people. There is enough for everyone.
There is plenty for everyone. It is the free-for-all fried chicken Friday. Everybody gets the fried chicken. It is the big buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight, the lunch buffet from 11 to 1. Everybody already enjoying their breakfast today, and it's going to be one heck of a Friday for you guys. It's going to be fun.
Fridays are always a lot of fun, and as I've maintained for many years, all days lead to Friday.
Yes.
So we're finally here, and it's awesome. And we're actually, for me, we're about, a quarter of the way through my day. So I'm excited to be.
Hey, you're making it happen already. That's right. Well, you guys had the fried chicken. You have the roasted beef, which already sounds delicious. But you also have, you mentioned like a taco pot pie that sounds really good. What is that again?
Yeah, so we've got the taco meat. You've got your little nacho cheese. You got some beans mixed all together, and then over the top of that we put some cheese because cheese. And then over the top of the cheese goes like this biscuit topping, and then when you pour it over the top, it's eggs and flour and salt and baking soda like that, and then you pour it over the top of the meat, and it kind of sinks down in there. Really, and it looks like, oh my gosh, what is this going to be like? But then when you pull it out of the oven, that biscuit has risen to the top, so you've got this nice biscuit topping, and then on the top of that we spread some sour cream, and we sprinkle some shredded lettuce and shredded cheese and onions and maybe some tomatoes and stuff over top of that. And that's like a taco pot pie.
I love
it. It's really yummy.
I love it.
Really
now, what I would do
yummy.
is I would take that and then smother it in salsa and put a piece of fried chicken right on top of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we make our own salsa here, so we'll have that out there as well, so you can just do that if you want to. And I love to start my plate off with something like that on the bottom, and then just stack everything on top like a pyramid, and then mix it all up in a big gloppy mess.
That's what I'm talking about. I love it. Well, with all that, what else do you have going on today?
So we've got Huntington's chicken is the other thing that we're going to be working on, and I've started working on that. So that's chicken, and then chicken broth that you make a sauce with cheese and chicken broth, and you mix that all up. And then it's got macaroni in it. So it's like a macaroni and cheese with chicken, and then it's got a breadcrumb topping. And so that's what we're having out on the buffet today. And then, of course, hallelujah that our pie case got fixed. Actually, just Wednesday it just got fixed. So our pies that go along with the buffet tonight are coconut, peanut butter, sour cream raisin, pumpkin pecan, caramel apple, custard, peach, and banana split.
That's
so
what I'm
excited
talking about.
all the pie.
And with the pie, that is that free slice of pie that you get for the buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight for dinner time, so you can enjoy all of these wonderful goodies and then have your pie on the side, but you should probably grab it but when you get there and either eat it beforehand or set it off to the side, or else it's going to go bye-bye pretty quick.
Yeah, I know. We always recommend grabbing your pie before you find a table, because you might have picked out your perfect slice while you're waiting for a table to open up, and then somebody comes along and swipes it right out from under you. That's always very sad.
Yeah. So the best idea is to walk in and go right to the pie table, grab the slice of pie, and then come back and wait for you to be seated.
Yeah, because that happens. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. So if you see people doing that, you do it too. It's great.
It's fantastic.
We love it.
I love it. It's the Inman Harvest Cafe. It's their Fried Chicken Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. I am all of that sounds so good right now. I'm so hungry, and that sounds delicious. The Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street, downtown Inman, just north of Hutch. Katie, you guys enjoy today. It's going to be so much fun. We'll check in with you again next Friday.
All right, that sounds great. Talk to you later.
Very good. Appreciate that. Portions of the Voice of Reason here brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe. We appreciate that very much with them partnering up with us on the show. I may take, it's not guaranteed yet, but I may take a vacation day on Monday just for a little R&R. It's been a while since we've done that. I take very little, if you notice on TV and or radio, I take very, very little time off, just because there's a lot of things to talk about. I don't like missing, and of course I got other things to do as well to keep me busy enough, but I take very little time off, but it's been a bit, and I think I need just to take, so I don't know, it may be, you may have a best of on Monday. If so, then I'll kick off with you again on Tuesday. If not, then I'll be back ready to go again Monday morning to have a little fun and start off a brand new week. But everybody, it's going to be cold. Stay warm out there. Enjoy the weekend. You deserve it, especially, it's still kind of the recovery of the whole Easter weekend last weekend. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Have a great weekend, everybody.